Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Brokerpreneur Podcast. I'm Dr. Ben Spears, the ambassador of Flow. I'm here with Matt Vi, as usual, the big guy. Matt?
Yeah, Ben.
I was talking to my mom last night. She's like, how's Matt doing?
Okay.
I said, I don't know. I haven't asked him since the last podcast.
Right. Okay.
So how you doing, Matt?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Although you were just trying to bully me and make me cry just a minute ago. Is what you?
Yeah, I was like, there's rumors that those tear ducts don't work. So I was like, I was going to see if they work.
Yeah. So they do. They do. I cry when people get lost in their recruiting efforts. I cry when people think that they know what they're doing and they have no freaking idea. I cry in coaching calls.
To sleep.
Right. I cry in coaching calls when people do what they're supposed to do. They're like, Matt, if I just said this, I'd win. I'm like, oh, that's so great. So yeah, the old tear ducts work.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I just realized.
Yep.
We need to start recording all these times that you cry. Because it sounds like all the good stuff, man.
It is. Yeah. I've always told people I've got a gift, unfortunately, to be able to make anybody cry. Sometimes it's for good stuff, sometimes not so much good stuff, but turns out I can make folks cry.
Yeah.
So I see you got your Kentucky Blue shirt on. I got my Georgia Bulldog shirt on, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna do one of those things. You ever seen those videos where those pictures where like everything's black and white except like one color?
Yeah.
I'm going to do that with this.
Oh, I love it.
It's this blue.
I love it.
I'm going to leave yours gray.
Hey, whatever you got to do, baby.
Shade, like 50 shades of gray.
Are you trying to cast shade on the dogs? I got it. I got it. Other than that, I'm doing fantastic, Ben, and I'm actually excited about what we're talking about today.
Yep.
Right?
No, absolutely. So why don't we dive into that? Just tell us a little bit about, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then, I'll let everybody know. How do you follow us and find us?
Yeah, nice. So we're talking about, because a lot of our discussions on the podcast come from coaching calls.
Exactly.
Right, and it also comes from you and I read just a ton of stuff. We try to keep up with what's going on with the market and all that kind of stuff. So
Dr.
all those
Seuss.
things, yeah, Dr. Seuss, right? Red shoe, blue shoe, get your ass to get moo shoe. Maybe that'd be Dr. Goose instead of Dr. Seuss, right?
Yeah, 1 foot, 2 foot.
Recruit foot, your foot.
Into your butt if you don't recruit
foot. That might be actually a good book to write.
Yeah, we'll think about that.
So we're going to talk about it, because, we compounded all of this stuff. We're going to talk about, you have to understand that recruiting and being a great recruiter is not a destination, it's a journey, right?
Yes,
that's 100%. What we're going to dig into that a little bit today and why it's that way and some things that will make it really easy to get your mindset where it needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, this isn't going to be wishy-washy, right? There's going to be some specifics to this. Because I know a lot of people, will hear something. They'll be like, okay, I know it's not a journey. It's a journey. It's not this.
Right.
Right. We've got some specific things that we're talking
Absolutely.
about. Some specific.
And why.
Yeah, action items. And we really want to make sure you understand exactly why that is. So, guys, wherever you're listening to this, make sure you hit that follow button or that subscribe button. There's no better time than the present than to go to prospectboomerang.com and click that green button, sign up for a free account. Guys, we just opened, we just created brokerpreneurpodcast.com specifically for the podcast. So go and check that out as well, and and give us your feedback. There's some places in there where you can kind of leave some comments, and we'd love to know. We'd love to know what you think about the website and how we can make it better, and anything else that we could add to add more value to your amazing lives.
Yep.
So, Matt.
Yeah, Ben.
We got our GPS.
Right.
Like it's the journey. It's not the destination.
It is.
Right, but we get focused. It's always like, 6 hours and 2 minutes.
Right.
6 hours and 2 minutes away, and then you drive for like another hour, and then you look and you're like, 6 hours and 1 minute. Man, that felt like what?
Recruiting.
Yeah, that felt like recruiting. So talk to us. It's not the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah. So let me say it this way. This is kind of a great lead in, and I was thinking about this when we were putting the show notes together and everything. I was thinking about this, and I was like, how do we get the point across of the best way to look at this? Okay, so I taught karate for a long time and everything. I'll give a little bit of an example of that in just a second, but I want to put some other context to it to begin with. Okay,
I like it.
So of course, I was, the chairperson for professional standards, oversaw arbitrations on panels, grievance committee, all that kind of stuff. Very involved in the board office on that end of things, right?
Yep.
And of course, oversaw a bunch of offices, thousands of transactions, don't even know how many over 20, 25 years, whatever, right? So the one thing that was really a concerning sign for me is when an agent started to justify that what they did was right because of how long they've been in the business.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
As soon as they start saying, well, I've been in the business 30 years, and they lead off with that, I was always like, oh, man, here we go.
Here it comes.
Yeah, here it goes. Just because you've done that way for that long does not make that right.
Yeah.
Okay? All right, so let's go to karate for just a second. And all this is really important, so bear with us, okay?
Bear
with me. So in karate, the same thing happened. There was a lot of people in martial arts that would get into martial arts, and they would learn a little bit, and then for 3, 5, 10, 15 years, they would literally just continue to do the same thing. Now, in martial arts, it's important for you to try to move towards perfection. You don't ever get there, but you try to move towards perfection in your movement and your technique and everything, okay? So I'm not saying that you didn't try to do that.
Yeah.
But your learning had to expand.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Your learning had to get bigger, right? And so the same thing has to happen with your recruiting.
Yeah.
Okay? So as an example, you get into put in that position as a manager, as a recruiter for an office, somebody that it's your job, you're the owner, and you have to grow, and you're tired of having to go out there and sell and then watch that money to go towards the light bill, right?
Yep.
You're bothered by that. As soon as you start recruiting, there's a tendency that we think we have it figured out.
Yeah.
And we just don't.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like saying 30 years in the business, because I stole this person's client, it's okay because I've been in the business 30 years.
Yeah,
and I've done it 28 times in the 30 years, so it must be okay. No, that doesn't make it okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And a good example of that, like, from my own personal life is there are a lot of things that I know. And because I know them, I've been asked, like, hey, could you stand up and talk about that real quick? Mm-hmm. I'm not the greatest public speaker on the face of
you sell yourself short. You're fantastic.
Well, I appreciate that, Matt. I didn't say I was bad. I said I'm not the greatest. Matt's the greatest.
Well, I appreciate that, but I don't think so.
I can just stand up and legitimately talk about something for forever, and it sounded like he just practiced for weeks. But it's almost like, well, you know everything. You know everything about this topic. Mm-hmm. Stand up and talk about it. You should just be able to do this. Mm-hmm. You should just be good at it. I'm at, recruiting can be a little bit that way, especially, if you're a manager and someone's telling you,
right,
to recruit. You're not the owner, let's say.
And they hired you to do it. So automatically we feel like because you're paying me to do this job, they're expecting me to know exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's just, and I don't think any owner out there is going, even if they hire a recruiter, there's things that are specific to your company that have to be done a certain way that they have to learn. I don't think if you're a manager that was hired by an owner, I don't think that they're thinking, and you should ask them if you believe this, but I don't think they're thinking, oh my gosh, you should know everything about recruiting already and you have to be fantastic at it.
But you feel that way.
Right, you do. The pressure's on.
Absolutely.
I'm getting paid for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's there's so many different examples that you can give of professions that are exactly like that.
Right.
But a lot of times the results in those other professions are kind of like instant gratification. Right. You can get those small wins, whereas it's difficult to get on the weekly calls or whatever you would have and say like, well, I talked to 3 people. Right. And then expect the whole company to just have confetti go up everywhere. And be like, yeah, way to go. You talked to 3 people. Right. Because they're just looking at those spreadsheets and those numbers and saying like, well, hey, last week you talked to 3 people. Where are those 3 people part of our company now? Yeah.
So so that's a great point. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about when we talk about compounding. Right. So here's what happens a lot of times when somebody says, okay, did you recruit?
Yep.
And the manager responds back, yes, I recruited. And what do most people want to hear, and what do most people want to report? They want to report the results of it.
Yep.
Right. And they want to give it in a format that's easily digestible.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, sometimes the manager, depending on their personality, goes into the specifics of the person and all that kind of stuff and everything. But what should be happening on those phone calls is, what were you successful in? What did you do that was moving things forward, right? So whether it's a call that you're having with a bunch of people, whether you're sitting at a Cracker Barrel and I don't mean a Cracker Barrel as in the restaurant, I mean like a round table mastermind discussion.
I went straight to restaurant.
Went to casserole, right?
Yeah, I went to straight to hash brown casserole.
So that's why I clarified a bit.
Yeah, just making sure. I didn't. Is that what a Cracker Barrel is?
Yeah, they call them Cracker Barrels. Maybe they just do in the South. I don't know, but they call them Cracker Barrels, which is just people kind of sitting around talking.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know. I just learned something
All
today.
right. So
guys, if you listen to this, I'm joking.
So if it's a mastermind group or a Cracker Barrel,
right,
and they're all sitting around talking, and all you report is your numbers, and then you start talking about how great of an agent this person would be. Mm-hmm. That's bullshit. Don't do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Instead, say, here's what I came across, and whenever they said this, I replied this way. What do you guys think of that? Right? When I said this is the result I got. When I said this is how they respond to that. I want them to say that more, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of conversations that are going to make everybody better. Okay.
Yeah.
And so whether it's a Cracker Barrel, whether it's your company is meeting on a regular basis, whether it's just you meeting one-on-one with the owner of the company, or whether you're the owner of the company and you're talking to me in your coaching call, whatever it is, I want to hear, whenever we're talking, what won and what failed.
Yeah.
I want to hear both of those, because that shows me learning. Okay. So now let's go back to karate for just a second, right?
Okay.
I'd have some kids, we'd practice things in class. And then if they had a chance to spar, I would see them try to do those things sparring. And most of the time, they'd fail horribly.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work, because they just learned it. They just learned how to apply it.
The
The technique wasn't there. Timing wasn't there, right?
And the expectation wasn't there either.
And I loved it.
Yep.
Every chance I got, I walked over and I was like, dude, I know that you just got laid out from that. or I know that failed, or I know you didn't load up the way you needed to, or I know it didn't work, or whatever. But man, you tried. I can't tell you the difference that's going to make.
Hey guys, this podcast is powered by Prospect Boomerang.
We all know broker owners struggle with profitability. Prospect Boomerang compounds your profits by recruiting the best agents to your brokerage.
For consistent growth, visit prospectboomerang.com.
Compared to the people that, we'd work on things in practice, they figured one thing out and they tried the entire time. Every time they sparred, every time they tested, every time everything. They did that Old Faithful, right?
Yeah.
And if they did Old Faithful in a way that they continued to grow on it, I'd love that.
Yeah.
But if they did Old Faithful the same exact way, just enough to get by, it wasn't long before they got left behind. And that's what I don't want to have happen to our recruiting managers.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, I don't want you to get left behind on your recruiting. You're going to get beat up. That's why I use the karate. Okay. So you have to practice these things that we talk about in the podcast. You have to practice the things that we talk about in coaching. The mastermind series that's coming up, you have to practice these things that we're doing, so that it helps you understand how to apply it in real life. And it's okay if you fail.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. As long as you're getting better.
Absolutely. And it's actually better. You're going to learn more if you practice the technique. If you try it and it fails and you realize why it fails, your level, when the time comes, is going to be like 10 levels higher in your conversations. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about, when we get to the action item, we'll discuss that and everything. But I can tell you're about to say something and I've cut you off like,
No, I was just thinking exactly about what you're saying. With let's say a kid, who's kicking a bag or something, he's just like going through the motions.
Right.
Like he or she knows that she's just going through they're going through the motions. Same thing. If you're one of those, recruiting managers or broker owners, and you're doing all the recruiting yourself, and you're going through the motions, like I would have to imagine, like, if you're listening to this podcast, as you go through those motions and you're not actually trying to get better, like, you probably feel like shit.
Right.
Right. You take this conversation and say like, no,
Yep.
like enough is enough.
Right.
He's exactly right. You know, I'm talking just to talk, you know, on my calls.
Yep.
Start having something like a format, like when we talked about marketing, we talked about awareness, consideration, and decision. If you go to those calls and you say, listen, like, you know, I had this great call with, you know, Betty Sue, and, you know, she obviously knows I exist, right? We had a really good interview. You know, she's in that consideration phase. I'm really trying to figure out how to get her from consideration to decision.
Yep.
What success has anybody else on the call had that maybe has, you know, has gotten them, you know, what results did you share that we've gotten with other people that maybe would take Betty Sue to say, yeah, like this is where I need to be. If you come doing that, just like you were saying, it's going to be a completely
Absolutely.
different conversation, and everyone else on that call was probably thinking about talking about how awesome this person would be if they would just join.
Right.
And you come that way, then you immediately start standing out, which is just something in and of itself.
Right.
But you're also going to start sparking, I bet, in the next conversation.
Yep.
A couple more of those.
And if I'm the owner of the company and that manager is doing that, man, how do I look at them? Right.
Oh yeah.
So the other thing is it forces other people, which this part you have to be careful about, right? It forces other people into a position where they have to level up their game, right? There's a little bit of that goes on, so you gotta be, you know, aware that's gonna.
Well, that's the
happen.
classic. Well, he took my answer.
Right. That's right.
What?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I was going to say the same thing.
That's right.
Right. And even if you were, you look like you're a loser for just saying that.
Especially when it's the 10th time you said it in the same call.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what we want to make sure that you're doing is taking that opportunity to leverage what you're doing.
Yep.
With how to get better.
Yeah.
Don't be that person that's been 40 years in the business and says in front of everybody with a ton of pride, oh yeah, well I did this, you know, this is how I've always done it because I've been in the business 40 years, and then everybody look around and go, yeah, that's like completely wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to learn, you have to get better. You always have to be trying to move the ball forward. And it doesn't, here's the key thing, because we talked about having a smart way of doing this and something that you could do that would be really applicable to helping you succeed with this. Take a small step all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll do that. We're going to talk about the action item. That's absolutely going to help people do that. But just plan on taking a small step all the time.
Yeah.
It is okay if you mess things up. And so we're going to do the BFT wrap up. And when we do that, I'm going to go through something that I did that I thought I was winning at. Okay, yeah. And I wasn't.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about why I wasn't winning at it and everything. Okay, so when we do the BFT wrap up, I'll get into that.
Yeah.
But
So
the key
all of our
thing
clients
here is
have that to look forward to. For
absolutely.
Sure. Yep.
So take those small steps. Right. Take the small steps. When you get done with the meeting, take that small step.
Yeah. So the last thing that I want to talk about before we go, because we've talked about like, gosh, you know, like learn more. That doesn't always mean like throw away everything.
Absolutely.
Right. That you've been doing. Right. So I don't want people to get off of here and say like, gosh, yeah, I have been going through the motions, or, you know, this, that, and the other, whatever. There's some things that you do
that are fantastic,
that are great. And it doesn't mean that because those were part of, you know, what was essentially like a shitty plan in the beginning, that doesn't mean that those little pieces can't be part of an amazing plan.
Absolutely.
You know, going forward. You just have to drop all that stuff that wasn't good.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's that constant refinement, and that's just growth, not only as a business person, but as a human being. Right. You know, as well. Like I do not eat 11 tacos like I did when I was 16. Right. That was a bad decision. Right. And it obviously didn't help me grow.
How can it be wrong if it feels so right?
Obviously didn't help me grow.
It did, just not vertically.
Yeah, just not
it
vertically.
helped you grow the same time, the same way
Dude,
everything
when I was 16,
it
it didn't make me grow out either. So. But I still like tacos.
Yep.
And I still eat tacos.
Absolutely.
I just don't eat as many.
Right.
Right. And so that's the way. Is like, yes, some things that you do are good. Keep those things into your plan in the future. It doesn't mean throw everything away, but it does mean, okay, like refine.
Yeah, and that's that compound effect we talk about all the time.
Yep.
Right. So that's what we want. Compound interest. What did Einstein said something about compound interest, right?
Yeah, I know exactly what
yeah.
you're talking about, but I don't remember the exact quote.
But it's something like compound interest is the coolest stuff ever.
Yeah,
It's
essentially.
something like that. It's the most trickiest numbers in the universe or something. But that's what we want to have happen. We want things to compound. We want the right things to be piled on top of each other to get a certain effect. Don't think that you are there. Okay.
Yep.
Even if you're crushing it, don't think that you're there, that you've arrived, right?
Yeah.
Go, okay, how can I get this a little bit better? Because you can shave some time off your appointment, and now you get a little bit of your life back, right? You can have fewer appointments, or you can do a better job in the appointment process, so the interview actually goes better. I mean, there's so many different places that you can work on all of this. You can get more referrals because you work it into the conversation with people at a different time. That's what we're talking about, is continuing to learn and compound by reviewing, redoing, reusing, and moving forward with it, and not just being happy saying, I've been recruiting the same way for 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anything else before we get to the action item?
No. Let's dig into the action item. I love it.
Sweet. Well, guys, if you're listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Deezer, any of those platforms, make sure to hit that follow button. I started to say subscribe. I haven't got to that part yet. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you want to listen and watch all of these in the exact same place, there's two ways to do that. You can go to Brokerpreneur Podcast. I'll spell it out for you one time only.
BrokerPreneur.
It's broker and in the end of entrepreneur, guys. Right. Brokerpreneur podcast.com. Or if you're just familiar with doing this at Prospect Boomerang, go prospectboomerang.com, click on podcast at the top, and it'll redirect you automatically to that new page. At the bottom, you can sign up for our VIP monthly newsletter, or weekly newsletter rather. Yep. And guys, it is just absolutely completely transformed, and we're so excited and so proud of that newsletter.
We went from monthly to weekly.
Yeah, we went monthly to weekly, and then also on top of that,
and it's still freely.
Yeah, and it's still freely. All the information about all of our events are on there. Some past podcast episodes or some short descriptions of them, so to see kind of what maybe you've missed. Our most recent blog post is on there, and then we pulled some amazing information from the internet that is pertinent to recruiting and growing your brokerage, and just compile that all into one place. And then we also put a couple free giveaways in there each week as well. Yep. So much value. That's what we try and do, is just pack as much value as we can, deliver that to you guys as easily consumable as possible. So Matt, let's get to that action item.
Yep. The action item is watch the SEC football games this weekend, because they're going to be big. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there's a big one coming up in a couple of weeks. It
is. Like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks after that. So we'll see. But Georgia's all breaks down to this weekend because if this one doesn't go well.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
Yeah. So all right. So the action item, right? After you get done with all of your appointments, every recruiting appointment you have for the next 6 months, right? Whether that's 22 a day or whether that's one every other month. If it's one every other month, you need to give us a call, right?
Yeah.
But let's say that let's say that you're doing X amount of appointments per week. After every appointment, just take out a journal and write down two things. What did you say, or what happened that you really liked? So what did you prompt, and what didn't go the way that you wanted? Really quickly. If you can do it in one word or one sentence, that's the best.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't write down a 38-page paragraph. Oh, I was excellent because of this, or oh, I was terrible because of this. Went great because of that or this. Just one. Okay. Yeah. And so what you're going to notice is, as soon as you start doing this, because this is what happened to me when I started doing it, there's some patterns.
Yeah.
And as I started to see those patterns, there was a couple of the patterns that I really liked, and there was a couple of the patterns that I really didn't like. Yeah. Right. Especially when I could go back and look at those appointments, and then 3 weeks later look at who I did or didn't get over that time period.
Yep.
I look back and I was like, okay, maybe there's some correlation between this and that. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's what we want you to be able to do. Just go buy a composition, go to Target or wherever it is, buy a composition book, get one composition book that you have this in it, write down what went well, what went poorly, and just track that for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't heard composition book in a long time.
Really?
Yeah. That's like,
Ben, you know I'm 50, right?
yeah, I do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, guys, so happy every time that you join us.
Absolutely.
And listen. I hope that you take this information and you start growing your brokerage, and reaching all the goals that you want to hit. Matt.
Yes.
We do the podcast,
Right.
We put together the amazing newsletter full of content every single week.
Right.
We highly suggest that they get their composition books.
Right.
And their, what do they call those things? The feather that you dip in the ink. I don't know what those are called. Go out, everybody go out.
A quill.
Get your quill.
I was actually ashamed for a minute to say that I knew what it was. I actually paused and I was like, man, I don't want to say it out loud.
You get your quill and your little jar of ink and write down all these things. We tell them to do those things, and we do it for one reason, and one reason alone. Why is that, Matt?
Because we want to be part of their win.